Trump. Trump has recently made the news again with a bloodbath comment. And so apparently the media, in which again I tried to remove myself from actually looking at anything that I was going to possibly react to. Apparently the media jumped on him saying that it was going to be a bloodbath here in the United States of America. Let's discover it for ourselves, y'all. No need in leaning into the media. Let's get the speech, or let's get the portion of the speech where he said it. We're going to break it down, and then we're going to see how everybody else reacted to it. If y'all not a part of the Patreon, the link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 30% off your entire order now, just because I'm special. If y'all walking with any other Teach Hanley or you don't have it yet, make sure you tap into the Teach. The link is in the description. Let's get into this, y'all.
And the head of the United Auto Workers never probably shook hands with a Republican before. They're destroying. You know, Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it. Went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line. And
you know why I believe him? Do you know why I believe him? It's because that's exactly what they did when he became president the first time in order to save the steel industry and a lot of the other industries that was already under duress during the Obama administration. I believe him. That's how we started the tariff war. And then he went through and he renegotiated the North American Free Trade Agreement, or the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which allows for, and this was the caveat, okay? So they were saying that we want anything that's in North America, right? Or anything that's manufactured in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, because you guys are all connected, then that is okay, right? We can do business there. But what they was starting to do was they was going over to Canada. Well, not so much Canada. It was more Mexico, because Canada has parity with the United States of America as far as the costs, the taxes, and everything else, right? So what happened was all of the car manufacturers ran to Mexico in order to avoid all of the taxes and the additional tariffs and things that would cost you in order to manufacture it over across the pond in China, whatever, right? And so they started building assembly plants in Mexico, and so they would basically say assembled here. If you look at the side of any of the cars that you buy, as far as the little sheet that's on the side of the car that shows you exactly what the cost is and everything like that, it will basically say assembled here in the United States, Mexico, or Canada. So that was the loophole. And that manufacturers was basically running down to Mexico, building plants, getting it and building it super cheap, but then they were still labeling it being built here in Mexico, Canada, and the United States of America. And so that was a part of the North America Free Trade Agreement. And so Trump went through and he renegotiated that because he said, listen, this is absolutely nonsense. Y'all using this, acting like it's assembled here, when in reality, all of the parts is being manufactured outside of the United States, and then y'all assembling it in Mexico, and then you selling it in America. And so we can't necessarily see what's happening. So we need to have a more fair agreement with the United States of America, because either you're going to make it here in the USA and we're going to sell it here, or we're going to tax you on it, and you're going to have to make sure that you give up that bag. And then we went into a tariff war with China, and, you know, we started to try to make things a little bit more equal, especially considering that if you were selling cars over there in China, or if you were selling any product over in China trying to do business, iPhones or whatever, you almost had to, in most instances, in 99% of the instances, you had to partner with a Chinese company to ultimately sell products there, which then they started to debate whether or not they were still in proprietary technology in order to then take your insight and then manufacture it on their own. So then they would learn your technology and the way you did it, because you had to pair with a Chinese company, and then you would push them out. You would push out the people and you would create your own company, which you would then compete against the very company that you had to partner with. So China basically had a monopoly because this basically happened prior to even the Bush administration. It happened during the Clinton administrations and before. So when a lot of people said, oh man, we win and we making a whole lot of money, we were mortgaging our future for what we were really gaining or what we thought we were gaining in our present. And this is why when you look at the Clinton administration and you look at the administrations that was before what ultimately led into the housing crisis and the booms and the bust cycles of the dot-com bubble burst and the manufacturing and how we lost a whole bunch of jobs and UAW and all of these unions, what was really happening was we were sacrificing long-term gains for short-term emotional progress and profits. And so we outsourced everything. We gave everybody bonuses. It seemed like everybody was making a bunch of money, but in reality, we was giving away our jobs. We was giving away America. We was opening ourselves up to be interdependent on other countries in order for us to survive. And so now that we're starting to pare a lot of that back, there's been a lot of pushback from it because they're saying that we can't do it because we don't make anything here in the United States of America anymore. We sacrificed and we sold our future in order for us to be able to make sure that we got temporary success, and we lost. They bet on themselves, they won, and now we lost. And so what he's basically saying is what they think that they're going to do is bring all of these other car manufacturers over into Mexico, build these plants, sell them here in the United States of America in order to avoid the loophole, and then funnel all of the money back over into wherever it is that they're building these car manufacturers at. That's the finesse. And so when y'all voting on these people and you're looking at the future of your children, forget you. I know you don't care about you. You think about your children, your grandchildren, the people that's going to be here after you, the future of this country, because they have to live here. You're not voting for, listen, when I go to the polls, regardless of who you vote for, when I go to the polls, I'm not voting for me. I'm okay. I'm straight. I'm rich. I'm going to be rich for the rest of my life. I'm good. I'm voting for my kid and my kids' kids and the potential future of the people that come after me because my goal is to lead this earth in a better space had I not been here. I'm not voting for me. I'm voting for the future of what happens after I'm here. Whoever we are, listen, if you are above the age of 35 today, you have the ability to shape whatever your life is going to be, but you pretty much are who you are. When you go to the polls, remove yourself from the conversation and start to insert your children and then tell me what their future going to look like. Because, for example, when you say, and I hear people say it all the time, and they say stuff like, well, what do you care if who marries who and they want to be in the same sex and all of this stuff? Well, it's not going to affect me personally, but when my daughter decides that she wants to have a son or a daughter, I'm wondering what type of school they're going to be going to and what kind of agenda is going to be pushed on them in order to undo and rearrange what it was that I set forth as far as what it is that we're supposed to be doing, because we are now the fabric. We are, and they're going to be influenced by everything that they take in on a regular basis. And so when I'm taking this into consideration, and I'm looking at the policies, and I'm looking at the debt, and I'm looking at the jobs and manufacturing, and I'm looking at the culture, and I'm looking at every single thing, and I'm looking at the policies of what's going to shape the future going forward, I'm focused on them. I make a decision based off of what is best for them. I live my life already. I've lived 3 lifetimes already in what it is that I'm doing.
You're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories. A friend of mine, all he does is build car manufacturing plants. He's the biggest in the world. I mean, honestly, I joke about it. He can't walk across the street. In that way, he's like Biden. But
so wait a minute. They got caught up on that one word with regard to the auto manufacturing companies. So he basically broke down and prefaced what he was saying by showing you exactly what the strategy is on manufacturers such as BYD in China, right? And he basically said, listen, it's going to be a bloodbath. Jobs is going to be lost. Manufacturing is going to be shed. Money going to be going over to other countries because we have not protected what is here in the United States of America in the same way that they're protected it in their country. So they got caught up off of one word? Come on, family. Stop. So he's talking about the auto manufacturers, and he's saying that it's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, figuratively speaking, it's going to be absolutely horrible. People lose their jobs, towns get shut down, money get messed up, everything is going to be taken care of. And they made a big deal about this? Come on, fam. This is why I like reacting to it in real time. And this is why I like doing the research for myself. Because then I can see what's really happening and I ain't got to depend on the news. This is why we the greatest show on earth. This is the greatest show on earth because we're going to get down to it and we're going to find out what the truth is. We're not going to take the sound bites. We're not going to let them clip stuff up. We're going to go find the original source, find out what's really going on, have a conversation about it, and get to it. That's why they don't want to give me my $30 million because I keep telling the truth. Give me my money.
For building a plant, he can do the greatest plants in the world, right? That's all he cares about. I said, I'd like to see one of your plants recently. I said, I'd like to see, where can we go? Well, we have to travel to Mexico. I said, why Mexico? He said, because that's where the big plants are building. China's building really big plants in Mexico, and Mexico's building. What about here? Well, we're building much smaller plants here. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? So what they're saying, Jim Jordan, is that we're going to make cars in Mexico, and they're going to do. You're not going to stand for that, Bernie, JD. I have a feeling JD's not big into that policy. 100% tariff. They won't sell any cars over here. And I'll tell them, if they want to build a plant in Michigan, in Ohio, in South Carolina, they can, using American workers. They can. They can't send Chinese workers over here, which they sometimes do. But if they want to do that, we're welcome, right? But they're not going to build them in Mexico, and they're not going to do that. We're going to tariff them at 100%, just like I've done. I saved the steel industry. The people that like me the most are the steel companies. But now I've been out for a little while, and guess what? United States Steel, 50 years, 60 years ago, maybe the greatest company in the world, was just sold to Japan. How do you like that?
That's a fact. It's a fact. That everything he's saying is absolutely true.
U.S. Steel owned and controlled by Japan. I wouldn't have allowed it to happen. Hopefully they won't allow it to happen.
So let me get into it now. I want to look at exactly how they reacted to it. Let me see what they had to say.
It was a week that began with President Biden and former President Trump officially clinching enough delegates to secure their party's nominations, setting up a November rematch that many Americans say they don't want. We'll hear from some of those dissatisfied voters. But we begin this morning with the latest inflammatory comments by former President Trump on the campaign trail. The contrast between the two candidates on clear display. And the general election is just getting started. Straight from his private jet to the podium, a freewheeling speech by former President Donald Trump last night in Ohio. It began as many Trump rallies do these days, with a song by the so-called January 6th prison choir.
Please rise, hostages.
Them as hostages, patriots.
You see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. The first day we get into office, we're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots.
But that was just the beginning. Trump stoking more fear about migrants at the southern border. Trump at one point saying they're not people.
I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion, but I'm not allowed to say that because the radical left says that's a terrible thing to say. These are bad. These are animals.
And while blasting the auto industry's foreign...
I hate how they chop up the clip to try to justify their point, but he was specifically speaking about how some of these countries are basically emptying out their prisons, and then ultimately a lot of these same people are ending up in the United States of America, and then they're actually catching some of these people at the border who they deem to not be worthy of being able to get inside of America, but they only catching a small percentage of them. This is beautiful. This is beautiful.
Manufacturing an embrace of electric vehicles, the former president making this comment.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
A top Trump advisor taking to X to clean that up, saying he was referring only to the auto industry, writing that President Joe Biden's insane EV mandate will slaughter the American auto industry. The Biden campaign seizing on Trump's statement to accuse the president's Republican rival of threatening political violence and
Really?
wanting another January 6th. And at an off-camera gala for the press last night, President Biden warning of what he called the toxic cycle of anger and conspiracy. Trump also directly attacked Biden throughout the speech.
That's insane. Come on, y'all. Come on, really? Seriously? Now, we just seen the context. We played the video of what he said. He's trying to incite another January 6th. Oh, my God. I can't believe that y'all just let these people finesse y'all so much. I'm amazed. Let me see something.
This morning, we are reminded once again of who Donald Trump really is. At a rally in Ohio, the former president said some migrants are not people. He cast doubt on the future of American democracy if he loses in November.
If this election isn't won, I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country. Does that make sense? I don't think you're going to have another election in this country. If we don't win this election, I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful.
During that same rally, Trump continued to whitewash January 6. He stood for a recording of the national anthem performed by 1/6 defendants from jail. And he suggested he would pardon those who attacked the Capitol, calling them, quote, hostages. Joining us now, Washington Bureau Chief from Mother Jones, David Corn. He is also an MSNBC political analyst. Good morning.
Morning.
David, what did you think about Donald Trump's bloodbath comments? And I must note, look, Donald Trump's campaign says that he was talking about an economic bloodbath.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy that, but that is in fact what the campaign said.
If they could not have gotten the most liberal looking person on this panel to just completely spin this, Jesus Christ. Big heads. Girl, get your big head off the screen. If they could not have found the most liberal looking panelists to be able to ask this question, this is amazing to me, bro.
Trump has always done this. You know, we've been watching this show for over 8 years now, and others who, like myself, who've covered him for years, have seen it even longer. He uses these high impact words that have either the direct or implicit tone of violence, right? January 6th, come down, it's going to be wild. Go up to Capitol and fight like hell. I mean, he says these things over and over again, and he's actually used explicit violent language in telling his own people at rallies to beat the you-know-what out of protesters at these rallies. So at this point in the game, trying to parse a word like bloodbath strikes me as being entirely absurd. He's violent. In the same speech,
he's violent.
He calls the people, hundreds and over thousands, who beat up cops a block or two away from where we're sitting today. He called them unbelievable patriots. This is violence, violence, violence. So when he says the word bloodbath, he knows what he's doing, whether he means an economic bloodbath or something else. In the same speech, he is endorsing political violence. And then when he says, you'll never have another election again,
I can't, man. I just can't. He's endorsing political violence. He's endorsing political violence. Did y'all see the same speech that I seen? honestly, did y'all see the same speech that I seen? I just want to make sure that we all looking at this the same way. You see how fast that got spinned around? Did you see how fast that got turned around? Literally broke down all of the context. Hey, man, listen, they trying to build factories over here in Mexico, sell them over here to Americans. We ruined the steel industry. If we don't vote this election, then it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. And listen, y'all, ain't nothing I can do. We slap tariffs on it. That turned into political violence.